Welcome to the Retro Network Podcast, the flagship show for the Retro Network Podcast channel. Get ready for the latest pop culture news, interviews, and topical discussions on all that stuff we grew up with and just can't leave in the past. And now, here are your hosts for the Retro Network Podcast, Jason and Mickey.
That is right, Jason and Mickey back with you for another Retro Network Podcast. How are you doing, Mick?
I'm tired. It's been a long 4th of July holiday here.
Yeah, you're telling me. Being on the road this last week and just, I don't know what it is about the car that makes me tired. You think you'd be sitting for, a day and a half in the car. You'd be anxious to get out and have all the pep in the world to go mow the grass or something, but it never happens.
Well, it seems to be that on the trips that we take, I'm usually driving and the one that gets worn out. And when we get to where we're going, everybody else who's been riding and snoozing, they are very active. They're wanting to get out and go. No, I just want to take a nap.
Yeah, right. Luckily, well, I don't know, maybe luckily, but next year I might have a third driver in the car, which would be nice to take some naps while in the car. But I'll probably have to be awake to watch him drive, anyway.
Well, from the sounds of it, at least you already have a second driver. I don't even have that.
Oh, really? Yeah, my wife helps some. I mean, she'll get on there for a couple hours, but I don't know what it is. Every time that she takes over, she's usually the one that hit the traffic or slowdowns or whatever. And she's like, why can't you just give me a stretch where I could just be on the same road, don't have to worry about going from here to there and not hit the traffic. But it always works out that way. At least I get a little bit of time to relax my eyes.
People that have traveled with me, and one of our listeners, Tiny, can attest to this. I usually don't trust anybody else to drive. No, let me behind the wheel. I have insisted on any trip longer than about an hour. I don't care where we're going, whose vehicle we're taking. I usually insist on driving. So,
yeah,
I am not putting my life in somebody else's hands.
I kind of the same way when I'm sleeping. My wife tends to brake abruptly or make real quick movements when changing lanes, and I'm like, what are you doing? I'm just moving over here. I get woken up out of a deep sleep, thinking we're going to die.
That's always fun.
Yeah, it is. So how was your 4th? How was your little ramble there?
The actual 4th was kind of low key, had a few small fireworks, just us and the kids. We waited till Saturday to have our actual 4th of July celebration and had some family and friends over, 25 some odd people with fireworks and the big yearly water fight and food for everybody. It was an exhausting but a good time.
So is that your normal reunion time, or?
It's not even really a reunion. It's just, I just tell people, hey, come on over and have a good time. Bring the kids, bring water guns. And it's just more of a 4th of July party. There's a lot of family here, but not all of them. So I wouldn't call it a reunion.
Gotcha. Yeah, we used to have a family reunion on the 4th. For my dad's side of the family, we drive 2 hours up to where most of them are in almost to New York State in northern Pennsylvania. And it was fun. It was more laid back, have a picnic. And my uncle, he was the one that always had the fireworks, and he would throw like an M80 out when nobody was expecting and scare us while we're, we got like 4 spit takes while we're drinking our Rocky Top Pop,
I had an uncle who really knew how to do the jump scare, because he wouldn't do that around the 4th of July. When we get together on Christmas Eve at my grandmother's house and he was out on the porch, then he'd start throwing firecrackers. So one, you're not expecting it. You're certainly not expecting it at Christmas time.
Yeah, New Year's Day has come around as a fireworks time for some reason. It seems like, at least down here in the South, those fireworks places, they're just kind of an excuse to have another day of the year to get people to buy their stuff. But I don't remember that being a big deal when I was a kid, fireworks around New Year's.
Yeah, me either. Our biggest thing on New Year's Eve, growing up, was watching Dick Clark and going to bed.
Right. And now you got to hug the dog so they're not all scared on New Year's Eve when you're staying up and toasting your champagne or whatever at midnight.
As I get older, I see fewer and fewer midnight New Year's Eve. It's usually like 11 o'clock. Yeah, I'm going to bed.
Yeah, I get that too. Since we're on Central Time, it's like, yeah, we watched New York. All right, let's go to bed. Go to bed at 11. Well, we just speaking of 4th of July and stuff, we got some fun stuff coming up. In this episode, we're going to talk about our 4th of July memories as kids and how that all went down as far as families go, and what we kind of associate or how nostalgia comes into that time of year. And summer too. We've got a fun, I guess you would say, theme coming up on the Retro Network this month with summer memories. So we're going to kind of tap into that as we talk about our main discussion this week. And we're going to have some fun little things in between segments, as we always do. I'm just glad to be back podcasting, man. 2 weeks. I don't know. It seems like forever when you've been producing all these shows, and we've been doing multiple shows a week, releasing to the channel. It's been fun.
Yeah,
but I'm glad to be back.
It's going through withdrawals. It's like trying to quit smoking.
Yeah. Well, it was fun doing those TRN game night shows, and I hope you all enjoyed that. In the meantime, while we were on vacation, or at least I was on vacation last week from doing our regular show. But that's fun. I'm anxious to get some more of those in the bag.
Yeah, I hope to be able to participate in the next round. I had to miss the first ones, and I waited and listened to them when they dropped. I don't know how I would have fared in the trivia. Depends on what questions I would have got. I may have done okay. I may not have. But the situation jukebox, I was listening to that going to work, and I'm naming songs off out loud in the car, and I'm like, why is nobody naming this? And then some of them, I kind of go for the humor sometimes. Well, win or lose, try to be entertaining. But when the question come up, what song makes you feel like a natural woman? The first thing that come to mind was "Goodbye Horses" by Q Lazarus.
Okay.
Which does that ring a bell to you?
No.
Okay. Have you ever seen Silence of the Lambs?
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's the song Buffalo Bill is listening to in his basement while he's dancing around dressed like a woman.
All right. I got you. All right. I made the connection now. It's amazing what comes to our head. Who thinks of Bobby Brown's humping around?
Yeah.
Off the top of your head, thinking about a dog show. But anyway, that was a fun show. The improv of it, I think, has just made that more than what the original game creators intended.
Yeah, I thought it was a great, easy hour listening, and very entertaining. And if people hadn't listened to both of those shows were very entertaining. Need to go check them out, because that was just a lot of fun listening to. I can't imagine how much fun it was actually playing.
Yeah, it was great. Well, we'll try to get you on the next round. At least we go have maybe another person. We can have that odd amount of people, so we're not getting into so many tiebreakers like we did. But yeah, fun show, very fun show, and we're going to be releasing more of those here in July, so be on the lookout for that. But let's get into the show. Let's go ahead and get into our recurrent events topics. All right, so first up this week, we had the story of Pizza Hut going back to their classic logo. And man, that just kind of slapped me upside the head. We had been talking, I think, before that, or at least through the website with that article about Pizza Hut and how that whole situation when you were a kid of enjoying those video games back in the corner and those checkered tablecloths and everything that came along with Pizza Hut, that really brought back the nostalgia. And then seeing that logo, I'm like, wow, they should start just doing like full restaurants.
Oh yeah,
throwback.
I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, because people online who've known me for any amount of time, Pizza Hut is a sore subject with me, but just how different it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, bringing back the old logo is okay, but it's really just the start of what they need to do to get back to what they were. And
yeah,
I almost understand why they changed. They started making all these little changes in the 90s, but when the Great Recession hit in 2008 and people just weren't spending money, You had Little Caesars out there doing $5 hot and ready pizza, and Pizza Hut rolled out their $10 any pizza promotion. And you mentioned the article on the site. I mentioned in it, for people who maybe wonder what we're talking about, it's called Back in the Glory Days of Pizza Hut, where I wax reminiscent about the 80s Pizza Hut. But I mentioned in the article that they didn't have to, I hate to say it like this, they didn't have to lower their standards to meet the competition, because they were more than a pizza place.
Yeah.
It was an experience. Yeah, it cost more, but the pizza was better, but you're also paying for the atmosphere and the entire experience. And
yeah,
I'll just stop there, because we could do a whole 2-hour show on my thoughts on Pizza Hut. But yeah, seeing them bring back the logo is a good start, and it wouldn't take very much for them to bring back some other things from when they were at their peak of popularity, and maybe try to recapture some of that market.
Well, I thought it was funny while I was home and I'm kind of scrolling through my phone and seeing that article hit the Retro Network last week. I was literally driving past the old Pizza Hut building in my hometown, and I had to pull over and get a couple snapshots of it just for nostalgia's sake. And I was wanting to break through the window or Jimmy a door to go in there and see if they had some of the old decor still left in the restaurant, because those pop up around everywhere. I've seen online, here's my old Pizza Hut. I've seen people make pilgrimages to their old Pizza Hut place.
I would love to get into one and get one of the booths with the table and the stained glass lamp and the little red candle holder. And yeah, I would put that in my kitchen. That'd be where we had dinner.
Yeah. Well, I went ahead. We started doing some polls on Twitter and on Facebook. You can find it #TRN podcast poll. And the question was, which of these two options would you rather bring back next at Pizza Hut? Do you want the decor, or do you want those fun novelty drinking glasses, or even really novelty anything like the sunglasses they did? Because they don't do that kind of stuff anymore. And it looks like the overwhelming majority on both Facebook and Twitter wanted the novelty glasses or items back.
Man.
By about 2-1.
Well, then I'm in the minority, but I'll tell you the reasoning everybody should change their mind. You can get those novelty glasses on eBay. You can't get that experience that the decor in the old Pizza Hut brings, except for it being at Pizza Hut. That's where we need to start. We can bring the glasses back later, and in the meantime, they can buy them off of eBay.
Well, I'm thinking news stuff too. Whenever a new movie comes out, or just having those novelty drinking glasses.
Didn't you just recently buy a 4-pack set of Stranger Things novelty glasses that looked like they would have come from a restaurant?
Yeah.
There's my point. You can get that stuff. You can get that stuff. We can get that second. We need the decor first to get people back in the door to even buy the glasses.
I see your point.
Well, somebody does.
All right. Well, moving right along, the Hollywood Reporter announced that a 10-episode Gremlins animated series is in the works for Warner's streaming service. Gremlins Secrets of the Mogwai will be set in Shanghai in the 1920s and reveal the story of how 10-year-old Sam Wing, who was the future shop owner Mr. Wing in the 1984 film, how he met the Mogwai called Gizmo, and goes through the whole story of a journey through the Chinese countryside and running into the Gremlins and how they're going to do that. So that, I don't know, that just kind of came out of left field for me, that the Gremlins are coming back and as an animated show.
Yeah, it does. It sounds like it'd be interesting, though. It's worth watching.
Right.
I wonder why we as in just general population, prefer to radically change the concept when there's a modern generation who didn't grow up on these properties like Gremlins and stuff.
Yeah.
You could take the original Gremlins story movie, spread it out, and make probably a wonderful 10-episode maxi series on Netflix or something. And you can embellish the story here and there and update different parts of it. But the general premise, I think, would still sell today. Those movies were very popular for a reason back then because the story has, I don't know, a large mass appeal. But well, I'll take anything that we're getting from back then. If it's a animated series set in the 20s, but it's Gremlins, I'll still take it.
Yeah, I was thinking kind of the same thing too. I mean, this is obviously geared towards us who know the series, and they're giving us like the origin story behind it. So maybe if this is season 1, then maybe season 2 they flash forward to, you know, the present day and somebody getting connected with Gizmo or a Mogwai and it turning into Gremlins and, you know, rampaging a town somewhere in the modern day.
Well,
and kind of spin
okay.
it that way. But anyway, I was just excited that somebody sees worth in the Gremlins franchise to bring it back at least in this fashion as an animated series. And it seems like the animated series is kind of the safe route for anything nowadays, because you can get 10 episodes of whatever up on Netflix and it can turn into the next best thing. And it's not like you're putting together $100 million movie, you know? So I can see why this might be the way to test the waters a little bit and see if Gremlins can appeal to a newer generation as well. But anyway, I'm going to be watching, I guess, through Warner Brothers, their streaming service. I don't have that, so I don't know. Maybe they'll have maybe they'll have a free preview like they did with YouTube, so we can check it out.
So, does Warner Brothers streaming service, does it exist now, or is it launching, or somehow I've missed this?
I don't know that. That's a good question. I don't know if Warner Brothers. I know that they. I don't know if it's through Warner Brothers and DC are connected in some way, but I'm just going to look it up real quick.
Well, I am too. It says early fall streaming service and coming in early fall.
Okay. So that has
now, you know, Warner Brothers has a massive library of content. So,
yeah,
you know, they have a lot to pull from. Depending on the pricing, that could be a pretty good option for streaming right there.
Looney Tunes. I'm trying to think what all they have the rights to, but I know there's a whole back catalog of Warner Brothers stuff that'd be great to get on a streaming channel.
Mm-hmm. It looks like it's going to be $16 to $17 a month, maybe. Ooh. Likely to cost $16 to $17, and likely to bundle HBO and Cinemax along with it. So that's pretty good value right there.
Well, yeah, if you're including those shows, definitely those channels. Okay, well, we'll keep our eyes open for when that pops out. And then this was an interesting story. Limited Edition Games has a license now with Lucasfilm to re-release physical copies of classic Star Wars video games. And I missed the first release, which was the original NES and Game Boy Star Wars game that came out in 1991. And the way they're packaged on a blister card instead of like the old sleeve and box that you used to get with NES. But the first run was sold out pretty quickly. There was only 3,000 copies made. And limitedrungames.com is now on my radar because I remember a time back in college, a friend of mine had the Super Nintendo, and we rented the Star Wars Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi games, which I think was Super Star Wars, Super, etc. And we stayed up all night to try to beat them all. Didn't quite do it, but it was fun, at least to try to attempt that over one night and just like stay up all night. And I remember having that original NES game too. That was pretty fun. It followed the New Hope movie pretty well. And seeing the blister card was great too on these.
I think the only Star Wars game I played on a home console was the Super Star Wars for Super Nintendo. Mm-hmm. But I remember really enjoying that. A friend of my brother's had it and would bring it over and I'd play it. And beyond that, the Star Wars arcade game where you sit down in it and you're flying. Man, I love that game.
That was great. But they're actually, I can't remember if I mentioned this on this show or not, but the Arcade 1-Up people who are releasing those games at Walmart that are $300, they're doing a Star Wars one with that traditional looking, I don't know what you want to call it, the steering wheel, joystick from the Star Wars arcade game. So,
wow.
I've seen pictures of it. I don't know. I haven't seen pricing or when they're going to release it or anything like that, but that got my attention. So it's fun to see some of these coming back, and especially this, there's not many of us that still have like an original NES or a Super Nintendo laying around, and the mini versions don't have the option of putting a cartridge in, which kind of sucks. But I do have a Sega Genesis that is kind of both. You get like 60 games on it, but you can also put your old cartridges in there. So this was fun to me, just that somebody is actually making cartridges to buy again in case you do have it.
I'm going to need to, on the site under our products we endorse, I need to put in a link to the Hyperkin Retron gaming console, because it has ports for Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and Game Boy, and you can plug them all in and play. So I will put a link up to that. People, it's only like $40 on Amazon, and it comes with controllers and everything. So you can find all these old games and play them, and now these new remake games are coming out. You'll be able to pick them up and have something to play them on.
Cool. Sounds good. All right, moving along. According to Deadline, a TV series based on the Hellraiser franchise is coming together. It's being produced by Roy Lee and Ready Player One producer Dan Farah, and they're currently searching for a writer, showrunner before hooking up with a network or a streaming service. But I know Hellraiser is pretty big in the horror world as far as, I can't remember how many movies they made, quite a few. And Pinhead is on pretty much everything now that Funko produces, and some of these other companies, when they put the horror characters together, you always see a Pinhead. So have you connected with that franchise at all?
Well, yeah, just this past Friday night on TRN Up All Night, we were watching Hellraiser in Blood Beach.
There you go.
So go to the website and check that out if you've not seen it. I remember seeing Hellraiser staying in a hotel with my old man on one of his business trips when it was first out on HBO or something, and not being able to sleep the rest of the night.
Well, I have not. I think it's been on TV, or maybe Up All Night or something at one point. I remember catching the first one, but I have not watched any of the sequels or anything. So again, I'm the scaredy cat, so I don't watch a lot of the horror stuff. So be looking for that news on the Hellraiser TV series. This was interesting. Chuck E. Cheese is now testing delivery of party packs to customers through the DoorDash app. So according to comicbook.com, you can get like a 12-person party pack with everything you need, like pizzas and cake and decor and supplies. The question to me is, are you getting like the characters showing up in costume? And that would be fun, because you think of like, I love talking about Showbiz Pizza back in the day, which a lot of these Chuck E. Cheese, they have the animatronic stuff like I remember, and you get that kind of atmosphere like Showbiz, like when I was a kid. But I don't know, that idea of like Chuck E. Cheese showing up at your door and being able to play games and all kinds of stuff and have that experience, I thought that was interesting.
Well, two thoughts. First off, Chuck E. Cheese is too far away from here for us to go. And these DoorDash services and Grubhub, that don't exist in my area. Mm-hmm. If you want food brought to you, you got to check and see if old Jimmy down the road is going to town later, and if he can bring you back something to eat. That's the closest thing we get in this part of the country. So I will have to probably miss out on all the excitement of the Chuck E. Cheese party pack.
Well, I don't know. It had that. It sounds like a fun idea, but it also sounded like it could be a disaster too. You know, I think of like Uncle Buck when that clown shows up for the birthday party drunk, and he punches them out. But anyway, have a mouse show up in your driveway or something. I don't know. It can be good, could be bad. All right. We've got the Robocop sequel which is currently being written and is being picked up from the continuity of Paul Verhoeven's original film series. I saw that he had tweeted out, or somebody had asked him, or asked the director of the new one, is it going to have the classic Robocop suit? And you would think it would, but it was confirmed that he's going to look like the traditional Robocop. They're not going to try to do something new like they did with the reboot movie. I had totally forgotten that this was going to, be a thing. They haven't set a release date yet. But what do you feel about Robocop and coming back and trying to follow or pick up, I guess, where Robocop 3 left off?
That's an awful long gap in time right there for people to remember all the details. Maybe I'll have to put another link for products on the site for the Robocop 3-pack so people can watch and refresh before that. But I'm in on it. I love the first one. We went to the theater and saw it when I was a kid. The second one I went to the theater and watched. I'm not positive I've watched all of the third one, so I'm going to have to go back and freshen up. But it's a good concept, and it's something that would, the world has gotten a lot more modern with technology since then. I'm glad to hear they're going to try to keep the original suit, but there's all kinds of other ways they could bring it into the modern world too. Give him some pretty cool tech gadgets and things. And so, yeah, I'm pretty excited for that.
I went back, I guess it's been probably a couple years now, and watched all three of them when they were on, I think, Amazon or Netflix. One of them had it. And yeah, I made it through it. I think some people kind of poop on the sequels. The first one was great, but just thinking about that and thinking about the remake, which I really didn't mind. It wasn't like it was horrible. You had Michael Keaton, you had Samuel L. Jackson. I thought it was at least enjoyable as a movie experience. But like you were saying, keeping the classic suit, which they eventually kind of went back to, I think at the end of that reboot movie where he was silver instead of that black, which was horrible. Even just the update in, the CGI effects and everything that you got now, you go back and watch like Robocop 2 and you see some of those huge ones walking around. It's, the graphics and the special effects are not that modern, we'll say. So doing something in that world now with the technology, I think is going to be fun.
Yeah,
it's going to be really good.
I stayed away from the reboot, so I've not even seen it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's going to put a cap on just the news stories. Here's a few anniversaries in TV. On July 2nd, the debut of Scrabble, the game show. This is the 35th anniversary of that. This was a show that I really liked with Chuck Woolery. You had the letters that kind of scrolled across the screen, I remember watching a lot of that back in the day.
I watched a little bit of it, not a lot to really get into it, but the actual board game I loved, especially Drunk Scrabble when you were younger. That was always fun, where you took all the rules out about curse words and stuff and names. You were drunk trying to convince people that, this was a real word.
Yeah. So that's that had its 35th on July 2nd. The 30th anniversary of Seinfeld's debut was on July 5th, and we did a little piece on the Retro Network for that with our favorite episodes. And we talked about that a little bit on the Rediscover the 80s podcast we did about 1989 TV shows, which we can push people over there to listen to. But yeah, man, 30 years of Seinfeld.
Before I talk about Seinfeld, look for in the curated content section of the site, I'll direct people over to that podcast, since this is the 30th anniversary of all those shows you and I talked about. It's been a while since we did that. They can go check that podcast out. Seinfeld is my favorite program that's ever been on television. And the roundtable we done naming our favorite episodes, I have too many favorites to really pick one, so I just kind of took one at random. For me, 90% of the episodes are home runs. So it was really hard to pick. But just the way they weaved in and out storylines and characters throughout seasons and episodes was just fantastic. Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld, comedic geniuses. The acting was great with George and Kramer and Elaine, and all the ancillary characters were some of the best collection of that type of character, with Newman and Jerry's parents and the guy who lived in the condos with Jerry's parents. It gave him the space pen, and just all these people who just interconnected in their world and weaved in and out. It was just fantastic television.
And Putty. Oh, any episode with Putty was great. I loved him for some reason.
Go Devils. Go the Devils.
Yeah, and the parents, I can't get enough of George's parents too. They just every time. Such a great show. So
all of Jerry's girlfriends, all of George's bosses.
Oh my gosh, such a great show. Okay, moving right along in anniversaries. July 1st was the 40th anniversary of the Sony Walkman, which it went on sale actually in Japan then, which was North America was a little bit later after that. But I still have my Sony Walkman.
I don't know if I actually ever owned a branded Sony Walkman. I had portable cassette player and headphones, but I would be surprised if my old man sprung for the actual Walkman. But that was the birth of this modern MP3 iPod culture that we live in. I mean, that was the original right there.
I remember digging through something in the garage. I found it, and this is several years ago. I took a picture. I like rubber banded it to my bicep. You know how they do with the iPhones. I took a picture and I tagged Sony in it, and I think they retweeted it on Twitter on their profile. But that was fun to find that. And then what I did was I handed it off to the kids. And I was like, all right, get this thing to work. And eventually they fooled around with it, and they did get it. But
yeah, I was just going to say, I'm going to add this to the curated content section too. There's a video on YouTube where they introduce modern kids to stuff from our generation.
Oh yeah, I've seen some of those.
And they put the Walkman in front of them, and they're looking all around, and they're asking them what it is, not just get it started, but they're like, I don't know. And like, it plays music. Oh, it's like an iPod. Yeah. It'll play like 12 songs. And the kids are like, wait, what? And they're showing them the cassettes. And I'll put that up for people to go watch too, because that's a fun little 5-minute video.
That's make me feel old watching stuff like that. All right.
Well, but that would be a great series of videos too, to take maybe a generation ahead of us, like our parents, and setting them down and giving them modern tech and be like, here, make this work. Like, what is it?
Dude, I just did that last weekend. What are you
talking about?
Bought my mom a new phone. It was like teaching a college level course to a kindergartner. Love you, Mom. All right, more anniversaries. The first week here in July, the 25th anniversary of Hootie the Blowfish Cracked Rearview album. That was on July 5th. So that was huge with me. I remember just playing the crap out of that one when it came out. Hold My Hand, that was heard on the radio like on the hour, every hour. And it kind of went into that summer. I remember it being big, and Hootie just blew up that summer.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago on the site, we'd done the soundtrack of your youth or teenage years. I didn't get to put a piece together for that. If I had, that album, Cracked Review, would have been on there, because that was a staple, especially when you're going out on a date, because that was not all your dates like to listen to Guns N' Roses, but you could feel safe playing this, But Hannah Jane and Let Her Cry and Hold My Hand and Time, that whole album is just great. I still I don't usually buy many MP3 albums. I stream stuff. That is one of the few albums I can count on one hand that I've actually purchased the whole MP3 album of. That's just a great album.
Yeah, it was great. I remember like later on, after it's been out for a few years, and I of course, Darius Rucker, very distinct voice, but to sing along to him, I had to have like a head cold. So anytime I had the head cold, I'd put on Hootie the Blowfish, and I could sing right along. It's just his distinctive voice. But
I remember seeing him in an interview. I think it was, well, not an interview. I think he was talking to the audience in one of his concerts, and he's getting ready to play the song "Let Her Cry," and he's talking about how he wrote that he was in a bar, and the bartender put on "She Talks to Angels" from the Black Crowes. Mm-hmm. And he made the bartender replay it like 30 times. And he just kept saying, I want to write a song like that. I want to write a song like that. And so we come up with Let Her Cry. And that's a pretty daggone good song in its own right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we got a few more anniversaries, and then we'll get on to our main discussion here. July 7th is the 30th anniversary for Lethal Weapon 2. I have not really connected much with the sequels on Lethal Weapon. I've watched the first one several times, but I don't know. I don't know what it is after it got to, you start throwing Joe Pesci in there, and didn't connect with me as much as like the first one did for some reason.
Well, I'm in the same boat. The first one was one of my old man's favorite movies, so I've watched it numerous times, and I skipped 2 and I think it was 3. Which one had Jet Li in it? Was that the 4th one or the 3rd one? I think it's the 4th one.
Don't know. That seems later. I don't know how many they've made.
That stands out for me because my brother was the first one in our family to get an actual DVD player when they came out, and that was one of the first movies he bought for it. It seems like, or maybe rented or something. I remember going to his house to watch it, and it was more the fact that it was a DVD that appealed to me than it was the movie. So,
gotcha. And then July 6th is the 25th anniversary of Forrest Gump.
Love that movie.
Oh, such a great movie. I remember watching that one in the theater. Just saw a tweet go out. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday on the 25th from Gary Sinise. And he put a couple pictures in there and said it was his favorite role. And it's just such a great movie through and through. Yeah. It's what kind of connected him to the veterans and all the work that he does through there.
Oh, okay.
So that's, I think that's part of the reason why it's his favorite, but such a great movie.
Not knowing that info, I would have guessed he would have said of Mice and Men, but
Mice and Men.
Him and Billy Bob Thornton, the make of the movie, he had an excellent performance in that. But everybody in Forrest Gump turned in fantastic performances, and I guess Gary Sinise's character, Lieutenant Dan, he, besides Forrest himself, went through the most changes throughout the movie from beginning to end, and just pulled off each era of himself fantastically. And that movie is I guess retro before our type of retro. It's full of scenes from the 60s and 70s and events and things that people in the 90s who were our age then, that would have been their retro, whereas ours is a little later. So that movie hit on all cylinders.
Yeah, it had a great soundtrack too.
Oh, one of the best soundtracks, that double album soundtrack.
Yep.
In the era before music downloads and streaming, that was like the best cross section of music you could get in one album right there.
Yep.
Absolutely. But it's still a shame that it won the movie of the year that year and beat out stuff like Pulp Fiction, though. I mean, if it was voted on now, I believe some other movies would have beat it, but it's still an awesome movie.
I don't remember what else it was up against.
It was up against Pulp Fiction. Was it up against Casino that year? There were several top-notch movies that year.
I don't know. I think it's worthy of it. It was, I don't know. It seemed epic to me at the time watching it. So, and I think it won like probably everything that year at the Academy Awards. Best Picture, probably. I think Tom Hanks won Best Actor. Mm-hmm. And I would probably guess Best Director, who was Zemeckis, I think.
Yeah, it won a lot of awards. It won Best Picture. Zemeckis won Best Director. Tom Hanks won Best Actor. Several other.
Did Gary Sinise win?
As Best Supporting Actor, no. I think he maybe finished last in the voting. It's really weird. I think Samuel L. Jackson was high in that category. I don't think he won it, though. But Shawshank Redemption was that year. Pulp Fiction was that year. So it was Quiz Show was that year. I'm pretty sure Quiz Show was that year. So it was a loaded field, and it came out on top.
Yeah, I'm looking. Okay, I found it now. Forrest Gump, Four Weddings and a Funeral, Pulp Fiction, Quiz Show, and Shawshank was all that nominated that year. Wow. That's pretty crazy.
I love all those movies.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, one more anniversary. We've got, in video games, the 30th anniversary of Mega Man 2. How much Mega Man did you play back in the day?
I missed the first one, and I think I missed the second one. I believe it was Mega Man 3 that was my first experience, and I borrowed it from my best friend at the time and took it home and just fell instantly in love with it and stayed up, like you were talking about those Star Wars games. I stayed up all weekend that weekend and finally beat it. I loved that game, though. But I missed the first one. But I love the franchise.
I remember playing it over at a friend's house, probably the first or second one. But it never really connected with me. I never remember buying a Mega Man game throughout the years, and it was always one that I'd pick up and play with a friend at their house. But yeah, it's weird. I should totally love it, but it never really connected with me. So, for what it's worth, you Mega Man fans can go play that for its 30th anniversary, which is July 11th. And we are going to come back. We have a fun little topical discussion about the 4th of July and a little bit of our summer memories mixed in there for this week. We're not going to have a hotline interview since I was traveling, didn't get a chance to get somebody on the hotline, but we will continue that. But we've got some fun stuff coming up between segments, our clip of the week, and then also I've got a song for y'all to hear coming up that will fit into this summer type of theme moving forward. So take a listen to that, and we will be right back after this. Hey everyone, it is Jason back with you for this episode's clip of the week. And with all of the 4th of July and summer talk we're doing in this episode, Mick suggested we go back and explore Bruce Springsteen's Summer of '85. And if you remember, there was a huge rift between him and President Reagan for using his song during the campaign and referring to it in speeches. While I couldn't find a good clip that went through that debacle, I did, however, find a news story about how big his summer tour was in 1985, breaking records and ending back home in Giant Stadium in New Jersey for the final show. So check out this news report from NBC News back in 1985 on the Summer of Springsteen.
On special segment tonight, the rock and roll singer they call the boss, Bruce Springsteen. His tour this summer has been the stuff of rock music legends. In New York, he set the record for one-day ticket sales. But as Ann Rubenstein reports, his message is simple. It's born in the USA.
Are you ready, people? Are you ready, backstage? Well, you see, I had this friend, was a big baseball player.
It wasn't even 10 years ago. Bruce Springsteen and his E Street Band played an auditorium that had 6,000 seats and only 300 people came to listen.
Make it look like a fool, boy.
Even though he had a loyal following, Springsteen's earliest records weren't exactly chart breakers. But his last two albums have changed all that. And now Springsteen is the biggest show on the road.
But all he kept talking about was glory days.
Today, Springsteen sells 13 million albums, sells out stadiums almost faster than you can say his name or his nickname.
He's my boss, so I call him boss.
Max Weinberg has been Springsteen's drummer for 11 years and got the job by answering a newspaper ad.
Well, that's the thrill of my life, having that seat in a stadium. I mean, it's 50-yard line as far as I'm concerned. He's the hardest working person I ever met in my life. And he's very entertaining. I get a tremendous kick out of watching him.
I'm talking like I'm old. I'm 35 now. Anybody out there old as me? Hey, all right.
There are lots of people his age at the concerts. Springsteen's songs are about unemployment, unrealized dreams, real-life issues.
Springsteen offers kids an opportunity to identify with someone who's not a drug addict, who's not pitching drinking all the time, who's not writing sexist songs or anything. He's doing what your parents might call good things, but he's not wimpy about it.
I know that Bruce had charisma when he performs that nobody else has ever had.
13 years ago, John Hammond discovered Springsteen. He also discovered Bob Dylan and Billie Holiday. He signed Springsteen to a contract in less than a day. Springsteen doesn't give interviews, but delivers explosive 4-hour concerts with no opening acts and reasonable ticket prices. He is charitable and concerned.
We all got to be vigilant, because with countries, just like with people, it's easy to let the best of yourself slip away.
He's got a big home in Rumson, New Jersey now, but Bruce Springsteen grew up poor on one side of this house in Freehold, New Jersey. When he moved to nearby Asbury Park, Springsteen spent a lot of time on the boardwalk playing his guitar. Greetings from Asbury Park is one of his album titles. People around Asbury Park say they love Bruce Springsteen because he never forgot them or that he came from here. In several songs, Springsteen mentions some of those people and places. In one song, he wrote about Madame Marie, the boardwalk fortune teller.
I felt he'd done me a very nice honor, and that he remembered me, that he could put me in one of his songs. And I felt it was nice. It was very good for business.
The Dull Brothers are playing on one stage where Springsteen started. It's the Stone Pony Bar where he still drops in.
To know Bruce over all the years, it's remarkable because he doesn't change. I mean, with all the fame and money and as big as he's gotten, he still comes to the Pony with his, T-shirt and jeans and his, pickup truck.
Hello!
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4! Bruce Springsteen, as his drummer knows, has waited years and worked hard to build this.
And played every dive and joint in New Jersey. And to play Giant Stadium is really a dream come true.
He could have closed his United States tour anywhere. Springsteen chose to come home. Ann Rubenstein, NBC News, New Jersey.
All right, we're back for our main discussion this time, talking 4th of July, talking summer. And let's start with kind of rolling off what we were talking about a couple episodes ago when I told you about my little proposal story. You said that your proposal story had to deal with around 4th of July, Mick.
Yeah, so wife and I had been dating for quite a while, and I decided to propose to her. And, it goes back to childhood. You measure the year, you have certain milestones. And for me, they were always Christmas and not necessarily my birthday, but Christmas and 4th of July were like the two big, beginning of school, end of school. Mm-hmm. So 4th of July was always big ever since I was a kid. My dad made it a big deal. So, I'm thinking about proposing, and 4th of July is coming up. And I thought, well, this 4th of July, I'm going to propose on the 4th of July. And took her to the town park. We were out walking that night. It was later in the evening, and I proposed to her, and of course she said yes, and I didn't even have to bribe her or anything. So we're going back, and we're sitting in the car for a minute, and I'm great friends at this point in time. This is in late 90s, early 2000s. This is 2000, and then in that time period, I'm great friends with all the local town cops. And so we're about to leave, and here comes one of the town cops, the one I was most friendly with, and he sees us and backs in and shuts his car off, and he says, "Yeah, what y'all doing?" I said, "Well, I was just proposing marriage, and you ruined it." And he said, "Oh, man, quit shitting me. Really, what are y'all doing?" I said, "Yeah, no, really." We had to show him the ring, and he's like, "Well, hey, that's congratulations." And I said, "Yeah, so we're just going to celebrate, but so I got this whole trunkload of fireworks I bought today and nowhere to set them off." And, of course, fireworks are illegal in Virginia. I had to go to Tennessee to buy them. And he said, he just shrugs and says, "Set them off right here." And he said, nice. He said, "What are they going to do? What are they going to do? Call the law?" I'm like, well, that's true. So we get out, and we set off a couple fireworks, and then over his radio, you can hear Central Dispatch. Control 584. Yeah, 584, go ahead.
So where exactly are you? Are you in town or?
Yeah, we're in the town park.
Okay.
Where the baseball fields and tennis courts and all this stuff is. And he's answering them back, yeah, I'll check it out. Over. Yeah. And as he says that, we light another mortar, and it goes off and blows up over town. And so after 3 or 4 calls like that, here comes the other town cop. Small town, there's only 1 or 2 on duty. Usually 1 on duty at night, but holiday like that, there's 2. And this town cop was one of the meanest, most strict cops around. And he had given me numerous tickets, even being friendly with him. Well, he pulls up, what are y'all doing? And he's like, we're shooting off fireworks. And he looks in the trunk and he says, give me one of them Roman candles. So it don't take long. We've got county laws and state law there. Everybody's got Roman candles. They're having competitions to see who can shoot out a street light. And we blow,
oh my God.
We blow up our mortar launcher, and we think the fun's over until one of the cops goes over to the third base and pulls the base out of the ground, revealing the pipe, and we start dropping them down and shooting them out of third base of the baseball field. It was a beautiful start to the last 19 and some odd years for the wife and I.
So what was she doing as this is going on? Is she enjoying it as much as you are?
She probably like your wife and other listeners' wives, she puts up with a lot of stuff that she wouldn't normally do on her own. So she was participating, and I don't know. We just had a great time, and it was nice to know we were in the company of law enforcement officials that we couldn't get in trouble with, and it was just a good time.
Always good to have those cops as friends.
Friends in high places.
That's a great story. Yeah, I remember some fun fireworks experiences. Probably not as fun as setting off fireworks with cops, but we always went down to, this is back in Pennsylvania, we went down to Altoona, and there was always a 4th of July show. They still do it, and it's at a park, like a little amusement park, and it's surrounded by mountains. So you get down there, you're just trying to find a place to park and put your lawn chairs out to watch a show. And what they'll do to start the show, they always shoot up one of those that's just this huge booming sound, one like really bright blast, and echoing off of the mountains there. It sounds like a volcano erupting or something. It's just such a incredible sound. And then they shoot up a bunch of those at the same time, and oh man, it's the acoustics of where they would shoot those off and still do is awesome with those mountains. So we would go down there many 4th of Julys to watch the fireworks show. But I don't know, fireworks, I don't know. Every time I buy fireworks, I feel like I'm about 10 years old. And I'm like trying to hide from my dad, shoot these off somewhere where we're not going to get in trouble. And now that my oldest is 14, I can start letting him light off some of the bigger ones that I would be like, no, son, stay back. Let dad do this. And so now he's getting in the fun. And I don't know what it is about it that just takes me back to that time when, oh man, we got to find some, M80s or whatever, firecrackers, something that's a little bit dangerous, a little bit on that edge of, I think Pennsylvania was a state that didn't allow really the big mortar shots either. And like my uncle would drive over to New York State or somewhere to get the mortar shots and other little firecrackers and M80s and M whatever 1000s that they that they get. So there was a little bit of that illegal substance going on, I remember as a kid.
We never had to hide anything from my old man. My dad was an outlaw from way back, and he would make the pilgrimage for everybody over to Tennessee. There's a place in Tennessee called Crazy Herbs. So that tells you it's a good place right there.
Right.
And it's been there my whole life. It's where we still go. We make the trek, and he would bring back everything. But it goes even farther back for him because he was the chief of the fire department for years through the 80s. And they were the ones who done the town fireworks. So he had the connections, he had the know-how. So even beyond that part in his life, we had the most awesome fireworks shows around just because he had the know-how. But you talked about fireworks. Was fireworks the only thing that you had there in the town, or did you have like a whole celebration throughout the day?
Well, there's some like little towns that would do parades. I can't remember. I don't think my hometown had a 4th of July parade, but there were some other ones close enough within driving distance that we could go to and watch. And I remember catching a few as a kid. But our stuff was a little bit later in July when the county fair would come and we would do more parades and, get the whole town together. It wasn't really around 4th of July.
Well, we grew up in the little town. We grew up in Glade Spring, Virginia, very small town. But 4th of July was, besides Christmas, was the big event of the year. And so we would have the street vendors, all the food vendors, funnel cakes and all that good stuff. You could buy all the cheap crap. We had live bands all day, horseshoe tournaments. And actually, a lot of that started when they moved to town. They used to have it at the town baseball field, and they would have a yearly softball tournament. Mm-hmm. And like one of the big attractions was donkey baseball. Have you ever heard of donkey baseball?
I have heard of donkey baseball. I don't remember ever seeing it or watching it, whatever, participating, but I have heard of it, yes.
Well, for the uncultured listeners that we may have, donkey baseball is you play baseball, but everybody's riding donkeys. So
crazy.
Now, let me tell you, this is as southern gets right here. And so if you actually hit the ball, that's the easy part. The hard part is getting your donkey to run to first base with you on its back. And trying to get the donkey to run to where the ball landed so you can get off and get the thing and throw it back in field. And so crazy. That was all. Yeah, we had, I kid you not, we had the grease pig competitions. We had climbing the grease poles. Those were such good times. And the live bands, and of course, they're playing Southern rock and dance music, and it'd go all night into the fireworks and nice fireworks shows. Then they moved to Town Square. And, when it was at the ball field, it would start 8 a.m. that morning. But my mom wouldn't ever want to go to like 4 in the evening because you'd end up staying there until fireworks. But when they moved it to Town Square, she would take us up to my grandmother's house who lived in town and drop us off at like 7 in the morning. And we would walk down there and spend all day long walking around eating cheap candy and funnel cakes. And and that's part of why I mentioned that was one of the benchmarks of my year. That was something I really looked forward to as a kid, was the 4th of July because of that town celebration. And now that's all kind of went away. They do a little bit, but it's not like it used to be.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, last couple times we've been home, we usually go home on 4th of July just because that's one less day that I have to spend on my vacation time. I get, actually paid for that holiday. So we usually head home, and we've been trying to find places to shoot off fireworks to go watch last several years. And this year was fun. My stepmother, she found a place in town, a country club that was shooting off fireworks. And I was like, well, there's a cemetery right beside there that we might be able to see the fireworks from there. So let's go check it out. And it worked. We got there. We actually watched this year's show from a cemetery, which was kind of creepy and cool at the same time, I guess you'll say, because you're surrounded by all these little flags, in the ground from the veterans, and watching the fireworks shoot up over the trees there, at nighttime. It was really an interesting experience, one that I don't remember ever having, while you're watching fireworks. It's usually just oohing and ahhing over the loud ones, and you're crowded and 8 people deep in lawn chairs watching a show, and that we were the only ones there in the cemetery too, which made it even weirder, creepier. But it was fun this year.
That ain't weird and creepy. You want to hear a creepy graveyard story? I can tell you a creepy graveyard story at some point. Watching stuff from a distance. Oh my goodness. Well, I'll go ahead and tell it now. You may want to put the earmuffs on some kids if they're around, but in the town I grew up in, we had this graveyard, and this ties into our little summer theme here because this only happened in the summertime, but it had a circular drive all the way around it. And on the eastern side of that drive was a fence, and on the other side of the fence was the drive-in theater. And of course, the drive-in was in its dying days in the late 80s, early 90s. It no longer showed mainstream movies. It no longer showed B movies. It only showed adult movies. So, but you could go by there at night and the parking lot of the drive-in would be empty, but that whole lane in the graveyard would have 20 cars deep lined up.
Oh, gosh. Oh, wow. That's, wow.
Small town life, folks.
I guess so. Wow. Yeah.
Well, besides 4th of July, what else did you get into in the summers? A lot of.
Well, we experienced a little bit of that on our trip this week, which was going to the lake. Really is a dam where we go to, and they had just a little small beachfront there. You know, this is Central PA, so we don't have a huge. You know, if you're going to drive to the ocean, you got to drive a while. So the closest thing we had was a small little dam in a beach area that we would go to and hang out during the summer, and just the community pool kind of experience. I just started watching the 3rd season of Stranger Things, and one of the scenes, that first scene with Billy, who's walking to get up onto the lifeguard chair at the community pool, and he yells at the kid to stop running. I was like, oh my gosh, that just takes me back right there of being at the community pool and, having the little poop scares from the kiddie pool. And there was a whole concession stand, so you'd go there and you'd fill up on sweets and soda, and you're jumping in and out of the pool, you get sick. And then the whole experience of being as a kid, and you have the shared locker room, and you're like, whoa. But yeah, I could probably tell a couple more stories about that. But anyway, that, trying to find some water, basically. We didn't have a pool at my house, my childhood home. We had slip and slide.
Oh,
so, That was our experience outside of going to the community pool. I had a sprinkler that was like this bug, and his antenna was like would spray water. You'd hook it up to your hose. So that was one thing we could jump through. And then I got a slip and slide. You hook your hose up to that. Mm-hmm. And then I had the bright idea of, okay, we're going to do the sprinkler at the front of the slip and slide to get that so you can jump through that, and then you can slide down the slide. And I remember this pretty vividly. So we're going on that for a while, and it's starting to make a huge puddle, like mud puddle. So we just decided, all right, let's get the sprinkler back. Let's tear the slip and slide back, and let's just slide in the mud. And this is in our backyard at my childhood home. And so we just started mud sliding. And my dad came home and about had a fit for his grass. He's like, look what y'all did to my grass. And I could just remember running for the woods. We just hauled it out of there to get away from his wrath. But we just tore up like a whole, 50-foot section of his yard and just made it a huge mud pit thanks to that slip and slide and that sprinkler. So, it's all about finding that friend who had the pool or begging the mom to go to the local community pool, trying to cool off,
Well, my kids love going to the community pool now, but I never went to the community pool when I was a kid. My dad owned his own business, so a lot of my summer days were filled working for him, but he paid exceptionally well for that time period and for my age, so I didn't complain. But what free time I had was generally spent trading baseball cards, people up and down the road, other kids, and we'd run together up and down the road. We had free reign on this road that we lived on. Was only about 1.5 miles long, and it was like we were a biker gang on bicycles. There were about 6 of us just running up and down the road all the time.
I can remember I lived on a cul-de-sac, and it was on a little bit of a slope. So if you were at the top of the hill, you could pretty much didn't have to pedal to get to the bottom of the street, right? So I remember the summer that they repaved our street, And everybody that had a bike, a skateboard, a pedal car, I mean, like all of the kids met at the top of the hill, and we were just riding stuff down. I had 2 little pedal cars that I had as a young kid in my basement. So I'd had a John Deere tractor that was a pedal car, and then this 3-wheeler. It was called the Hot Seat, and it was like a huge 3-wheeler chopper. It had the little skinny tire in the front and 2 big plastic ones in the back. I remember dragging those to the top of the hill that day, along with my bicycle, and people were riding skateboards with their, brother or sister on the back down the paved street. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun that day. I mean, I just remember everybody seemed to be home that day. Everybody just grabbed whatever they could that had wheels to get up to the top of the street and ride on that new pavement.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. When I was really young, my cousin lived behind us. We had a big hill, and we had the big wheels, and we would go up and down that hill all day long. And then on the other side of the years of trading baseball cards, when I got a little older in the early 90s, my dad hooked us up with one of the black boxes for cable.
Mm-hmm.
So we had pay-per-view, viewer's choice. And on really hot days or rainy days, my brother and I would just stay inside and watch JFK when it was on back then, and the Addams Family, and then JFK again, and then all those movies that played on loop on those channels. I remember that one year, the movie Teen Witch. I watched that one summer probably about 40 times. I've probably seen Addams Family 20 or 30 times, and I've sat through all of JFK 15 or 20 times. And we would just sit there and just watch over and over and over and over on those summer days.
Yeah. See, we would go in on rainy days to play like Atari or something, Nintendo, when that came out. I don't remember ever sitting down like through a whole day and doing that. We were always trying to get outside.
Well, see, this was in the point of time, he was hitting 13, 14 years old, and we'd be watching MTV. That's when you hit the lazy era. You've got kids,
Yeah.
They don't like to do stuff.
Yeah, but younger than that, we still had pretty good reign of our neighborhood. None of the houses in my neighborhood had like fences that weren't fenced in, privacy fences or anything. So you could just go from like house to house to house in their backyard, and we would ride our bikes all around from the woods. And I went home and clocked it because my parents would let me go down into town as long as I was with a friend or something. We'd ride our bikes down to the candy store, and then we also would ride our bikes. There was a lot of 4-wheeler trails going around where our neighborhood was, and we would ride our bikes back these 4-wheeler trails and would go over to the cemetery that was paved, and we would it was like the Graveyard 500 on our bicycles riding around that cemetery until somebody paying their respects would get mad at us and, you kids go somewhere else. But it was like 3/4 of a mile that we would ride down to the candy store and then back, with no parental supervision.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think about that now, as a parent, and how short that leash is even around your own like neighborhood.
Oh, I know. And that road I grew up on, we'd ride bikes. One year, one of my dad's maybe second cousins or something opened a little diner. See, this road we lived on, you had the main highway, and this road turned off of it and eventually went back to it.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like in the middle of that, there was a pull off, and they opened this diner. And we'd go down there and eat sometimes. And Dad told him, said, hey, if he comes in here and he wants something to eat, just go ahead and fix him whatever he wants. And
nice.
I'll pay, So we went down there on a Saturday, like the following week, and we're eating, and she brings the bill, and she said, do you want to go ahead and pay for the stuff he's got this week? And she's like, yeah. And they bring my dad a bill. I don't know what the total was, but I can tell you that stopped right then and there, me going down there and eating, because I wasn't just going for lunch. I would go in there and eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, and they also sold convenience items like cookies and crackers and chips. I was getting 3 or 4 bags of chips and cookies. It was probably a week's worth of groceries that I consumed that he had to pay for that Saturday.
Wow. That reminds me of like the the room service bill in Home Alone 2.
Yeah.
You spent $900 and whatever in room service.
Yeah. Well, the sad thing is, I could have spent more if
Yeah, right.
I was trying to be conservative. But when you have that carte blanche in the summertime to stop in there and get a nice cold drink or a milkshake and some cookies and, hey, what's today's special? Lasagna? Yeah, give me some of that lasagna. Go back and eat a hamburger at dinner and give me a piece of pie and some banana pudding and a milkshake. Wow. And it could have been worse.
Yeah. See, it was all about the candy for me. I mean, I could care less about riding down to Tasty Freeze and getting a chili dog. It was all about going to the candy store and filling up. See, we lived on a hill, so I could basically coast into town, but we would end up pushing our bikes back. So we would coast into town. You get our, ice cream, your WWF ice cream bar. We'd get some of those, and you get as much candy as you could in you, so you had enough energy to get your bike back up the hill to get back home. So we weren't thinking about meals. We were just thinking about sugar. We wanted sugar. And we never had that, there was no tab at the Buzzard's grocery store there in Kerwinsville, Pennsylvania. Let me tell you, we had to earn those money.
That's another recommended product I'll have to put on the site. Biking to Buzzards. Jason's book about that.
True. Yes. A lot of these I put in there. It's a short little memoir, but yeah, I've got some fun memories in there about growing up in small town PA. It was a one traffic light town. So I don't know how that was compared to your experience.
Well, at least you had a traffic light. The closest traffic light to where I grew up was about 15 miles away.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're out in the sticks.
Oh, I grew up on a 45-acre farm, and when I was really young, 6, 7 years old, my cousin who lived over from us, we would spend daylight to dark just exploring the farm. Dad would be off at work. Mom would be doing her thing. My brother's not around. It's just 2 7-year-olds, 40 acres from home. Hey, look at this bloated cow in the pond. Yeah, let's go swimming. We go swimming in it and stuff.
We had kind of the same thing. I mean, that little cul-de-sac, there's probably 20 homes, up and down each side. There was a Jehovah's Witness church that you can read all about the stuff that we did there in my book. But we would climb up on the roof of that during the summer and just hang out. Hey, I'm on top of a building, acting all badass. But we had farming land around us, so we'd go up there and find corn and store that for our Halloween prank days when we go corning.
Wait. What's corning?
You don't know what corning is? Okay.
No, I mean, I grew up in the backwoods, but that one has passed me by.
So you go up there, you find some corn and shuck it so you get down to the kernels. And then basically Halloween night, you just grab a handful of kernels and throw them as hard as you can at the neighbor's door, which was usually a screen door. So it made a loud noise. So it was twofold in the fact that you got to throw it and make a loud noise to scare all the people in the house. And then the next day they had to come out and sweep it all up.
Okay, so you were letting the corn dry and taking the hard kernels off and throwing them by the handful.
Yes.
Why not just throw the whole stalk with the hard corn kernels on it?
Well, we weren't.
That'd make a louder noise.
It would make a louder noise, but we were more into the prank and not property damage kind of age range there.
Yeah, just egging and toilet paper was just too simple for you all.
Oh yeah, no, we did that too, but corning was part of it. Part of the process.
I've never heard of corning until just now.
Well, there you go. We'll have to make that a TRN discussion around Halloween. All of our Halloween pranks.
Heck, I'll make that a video. Me and the kids will go corning this year, and we'll film it.
Well, living in the city, I don't have access to the corn I did as a kid, so
I'll
leave that to you. All right. Well, we got some summer memories there. We dished out, and we've got some more coming up on the website later this month, just tapping into those summer memories as kids and everything. Do we have some more like particular themes going with that, Mick, or is it just kind of summer memories?
Well, I threw it out to folks to take from it what they wanted to, like summer vacation, whether that, trips they remember fondly or different, just the entire summer vacation. So whatever people come up with on their own, I really don't know what it'll be. For me, I can tell you the piece I'm working on is one of the big yearly traditions for us in the summertime, our yearly trip and some other vacation stuff. So just, I'm not sure how everybody will interpret that. So it's hard to tell what we'll get at the moment.
Okay. Well, we'll kind of leave it at that and let y'all check that out on the Retro Network website later on this month. And we're going to come back. We're going to wrap things up, tell you what's going on, what you might have missed recently on the Retro Network, and just kind of put a bow on it, and we'll get on out of here. So stick around for that. Hey everyone, Jason again, and all of this talk about summer reminded me of a recent song I discovered called Summer by the artist Ace Marino on the Fixed Neon record label, and it just really connected with me from the first time that I heard it. I thought it would be fun to pass along to everyone here. It's got that great synthwave or retrowave style sound that I've just fallen in love with over the last several years. So check out this track from Ace Marino called Summer. The song is called Summer by Ace Marino. I hope you enjoyed that one. Thanks to Fixed Neon for allowing me to play the song right here on the Retro Network podcast. If you want to connect with Ace Marino, he's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can check out his music on Spotify or Apple Music. And the easiest route to do that, I'm putting a link in our show notes that you can click over and check out that track and all of his music. So thanks again. That was a great song. Hope you enjoyed it. And let's go ahead and get back to the podcast. All right, we are back for our final segment of this episode of the Retro Network podcast. And I was on vacation last week, so I'm anxious to hear what I might have missed on the Retro Network, Mick.
Well, you missed quite a bit of fun stuff. We talked earlier, both of the TRN Game Night podcast dropped here recently. The Situation Jukebox and the Retro Trivia. Eric had his first Music Monday piece. He's going to be doing some different music-themed pieces for us. He done a Duran Duran music video spotlight where he put in several videos and done a lot of talk on them, some of the history, his own personal thoughts, and times and places he was when those come out. That was really fun looking back on all that too.
Uh-huh.
We also mentioned my piece on back in the glory days of Pizza Hut. It's a long read. I'll warn you now, people, when you click on it. It's a lot to digest, but it's because there's a lot to talk about. Brandon was back with another retro rerun review, this time Night Court, one of my personal favorite shows from my childhood.
Love Night Court.
Watching it through a modern eye, I don't believe he was as fond of it as we were watching it in its time. So people can go see if they agree with that or not. Mm-hmm. The guys from Sequel Quest had Patriotic Special where we were reposting some of their older shows. Their sequels to Independence Day and Red Dawn, which I've not listened to yet. And actually, I'm in the middle. I've got it paused right about the middle of the movie, the Independence Day Resurgence. The wife and I are watching this afternoon. As far as sequels go, it's the first time I've watched it. I'm not real impressed. I look forward to finishing it and listening to Adam and Jeremy and Jeff's take on what the sequel should have been like.
I've got the podcast downloaded. I have not listened either, but I have not seen it. I've not seen Resurgence.
Well, the first half I'm just not, overwhelmed with. I love the original movie, but we'll see how the rest of it goes. We also had, we mentioned this earlier too, the TRN Roundtable this week, our favorite episodes of Seinfeld. Several, myself included, several of us went through our favorite episodes, and every one on this list I will personally vouch for as being top-notch episodes. And then the TRN Up All Nights we talked about. Friday night was Hellraiser and Blood Beach, and Saturday night was multiple episodes of Tales of the Crypt. It was an all-horror weekend. And for people who may not be aware, every Friday and Saturday night at 11 p.m. sharp, you can tune in to the retronetwork.com or through our social channels at TRN Social, where we have our own version of the old USA Up All Night, where we have some kind of double feature for you to sit and relax and enjoy and binge watch late at night on the weekends. So check that out every week. I believe that may be all you missed.
Yeah, I saw the Tales from the Crypt post go up, and I did watch a little bit of that as a kid. That was, I guess you could classify as horror, but it was more scary or more, I don't know, wasn't exactly gory or like watching Friday the 13th or something, Yeah,
it was a good little anthology series on HBO, though.
Yeah. Yeah, and then on the podcast side of things, I'm in the middle of watching season 3 of Stranger Things, since I didn't get to last week when we were on vacation. And me and a couple of the TRN staff are going to get together and do a review pretty soon as a podcast roundtable. So we're going to be doing that, and I'm going to schedule some more TRN game nights coming up, like I said. So be looking here on the podcast channel for more of those. And the Sequel Quest guys, I believe it's next week, have the new Ferris Bueller sequel they're going to explore. So I'm looking forward to that. Cool. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. And that'll be a brand new one. Won't be one of the ones from their archive. So be on the lookout for that as well. And just a couple quick shout outs. We do mention as we end the show that we'd love for you to leave us a review. We've had a couple reviews over there on iTunes. User Mom Great said, great stuff. Really enjoy hearing Mickey and Jason do a deep dive into our childhoods and always get a kick out of the Sequel Quest gang. So thanks for that comment. Also a 5-star from the Ginge Ninja. I think I'm saying that right. Excellent. Insert guitar riff in quotes. New home of both retro and modern movies, comics, geekiness, nostalgia, and more. It's an interesting mix of shows. So thank you so much for that comment, your 5-star review. And if you guys want to do that for us over there on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and let us know, we'll give you a shout out as well. So thank you guys for doing that. And we want you to connect with us on social media at TRN Social. You can find Mickey at Yesterdayville and me at RD80s if you want to connect to our personal accounts. So be on the lookout. We've got some great stuff for you coming up in July. So Mick, always a good time, man.
Yeah, this one was a lot of fun talking about all the summer stuff and corning. And we use those terms where I'm from, but it's not for what you're doing. So.
Oh, so you're back hills. You're the mountainous variety of.
Oh yeah.
We're all Hicks, I guess, but there's a certain area where Hicks turn for the worst.
Hey now.
All right, let's just stop right there. We'll end the Hick talk, but yeah, it was good to talk, man.
As Hillbilly Jim would say, don't go messing with a country boy, okay?
Yeah. Well, I'll say I'm partly country, partly city, but we'll leave it at that, and we'll dive into our childhoods a little bit more next time. So thanks, everybody, for listening, and we will talk to you next week right here on the Retro Network Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Retro Network Podcast channel. Make sure you listen to all of the great podcasts we have to offer right here in this feed. If you enjoy our channel, please give us a 5-star rating in your favorite podcast app. Connect with us on social media by following TRN Social and visit the retronetwork.com website for your daily retro fix. Come back next week for another episode of the Retro Network Podcast.